the drive home. For the next 2 hours, I'm going to be your host. My name is Matt. Sometimes the grass factor. Martin. Picking Friday. I just got on the door. I've been traveling a little bit all over the place. I had to take me a quick trip on up to Campbellsville, Kentucky today. It's funny you say that, John. I was literally in Campbellsville, Kentucky today, and meeting up with the farmer there, and boy, what a guy that farmer was. We got us a little project, side jet project going on, up, down, left, right, super sideways, maybe a little bit of top secret, I don't know. I refreshed it. It's coming, John, don't worry, it's coming. But I tell you what, I absolutely love when I get the opportunity to go hang out with these farmers. You end up taking away so much information from them, and information you did not information you did not know you wanted. How about that? I think that's a good way to put it. So it was nice. It was exciting. We went and boy, we just kind of covered all kinds of things. We were talking about renewable energy. We were talking about sustainable approaches to land management. We were talking about land management from a hunting perspective. We were talking about land management from a row crop perspective. We were talking about animal management from livestock to all kinds of stuff. Oh, Kevin Shepard's got him a little feature ready to go. What's your website, Kevin? Throw it up in the chat, and I will approve that. So YouTube's gonna flag it, but I will pass it on through. Plug your feature. So I gotta say, I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning. I'm a little wired. I went to bed around midnight. Got up at 4. Hit the road. Shout out to Carson and JB and Slick Willie J holding down the back seat. He was a good sport about it, that's for sure. Also, shout out to Control Labs. We got a big project coming up with Control Labs, so I'll let everybody know about how my experience goes with them. ControlLabs.com. Lush is officially out of LushX. I'm officially out of LushX. I got nothing for you. I am incognito persona non grata till, I don't know. Let's see. Till sometime at January 1, somewhere around there. So maybe around January 1, Lushy, we can get you flooded with some LushX. I don't know. Jason Traylor, I'm glad you start work at 4 a.m. because it's not my favorite thing to do. One of these things is, if I can prepare for 4 a.m. where I go to bed at a decent time, say like 10 o'clock, but the problem is that I ended up having to stay up kind of late and work on something else and then go and do that. Patrick, it is a lot of let me see here. Can post your link to feature. Okay. get that figured out. Yeah, you have to do those things, Patrick. And this is my take on it: is am I overextending myself into too many things? Sometimes I feel like, yeah, I am. But here's the reality of the situation: is that I'm only going to be in my 30s once, and while I've got the energy, while I have the mental fortitude, the mental capacity to take it on, dang it, I'm gonna do it. So that's my mindset. I don't care what it takes, how hard it is, whatever it may be. I'm just going for it. Oh, look at you, Jason. You're a 4.5 hour kind of person too, are you? Are you a coffee guy? I'm curious. Do you do the coffee thing? I go off and on. I'm kind of cyclical with it. When I'm on it hard. When I'm off it hard. I don't even want to look at it, kind of thing. Sometimes I'll go down on the what is it? Oh, golly. On send me a DM on there we go. All right, we'll get that figured out. Sometimes I'll go hard on the paint on the they have these things. They have this Neurofuel Max here in Knoxville that I'll see from time to time, and I'll start chucking those back. But you definitely can't do more than one. If you do more than one on that, you start to feel weird. You get a little squirrely. But if you don't, if you stick to a reasonable amount and everything is okay, then you can actually get a nice little quick pick me up off of it. Oh, here it is. There we go. Look at that. Easy enough. Yeah. So, I must have my Joe. There you go. You are a coffee guy. I'm looking over here. My windows. I got too many monitors going on, and I can't focus on everything that's going on. So, anyway, welcome aboard the Soul Train. Today we should have a pretty interesting day. Again, I've got lots of kind of information streaming in here. We had someone reach out. Let's see. We had somebody reach out. Mr. Hurd said there's a UGA study out there talking about Poa annua. So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about Poa annua today. I'm not entirely familiar with that, but there's definitely some interesting things about Poa and Simazine, which is what he's specifically stating there, that it's a little bit odd. So I thought maybe we could get into more specifics there and kind of explore that. Then let's see, even over here, somebody firing off a question, talking about split apps of spectacle flow. Yeah, in South Louisiana, yep, I would definitely be going ham on at least my first application of spectacle flow. It's kind of a lot to actually, I'd say with temperatures kind of the way you are on a cooling trend. You're late September. I do not think it's too early at all. I would just go ahead and start after it. As long as I don't stop moving, I'm fine. That is no doubt. There is no doubt. If you start and then stop, and then start, and then stop, it is so much more difficult than it is if you just go, especially on low amounts of sleep. Boy, you really can't stop. And I know there's just kind of a sweet spot for me. 4 hours is usually a little bit too little sleep. So I like to be closer to the 5 plus is good. But when you start getting to 7 and beyond, that's when I don't feel right. I don't feel 100% the next day. I feel kind of hungover. Isn't that weird? Isn't that bizarre? That if you start getting to 7+ hours, it's this odd, kind of have a headache all day, kind of feel like I have heavy eyes all day. It's just not very, it's not satisfying for me. How about that? Whereas if I get 6 and I get up and I just start going, start moving. And boy, I feel like I'm on my A game. And today was kind of a weird one too, because I had to put in so many hours driving. We did 150 miles there and 150 miles back. So that was, it's kind of hard to shake it. And of course, every bit of it is through the back roads. I don't know how many people have been to Campbellsville, Kentucky before. And I have to say, the actual town of Campbellsville was much nicer than I anticipated. And it's not to say that it would just be some crap town or whatever. It's just, I fully expected a very small town. And it wasn't. It had way more bustling economy there than I expected. They had a Lowe's and an Ace Hardware and all that stuff that I drove past, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. All right, they get it all done here. Darren, I see your question out of the corner of my eye that is called, does anybody use Pre in a vegetable garden? I'll kind of give you a heads up that basically all row crop production that makes it into our grocery store is treated with Pre-Emergent. So, yeah, there are agricultural products out there that are designed for Pre-Emergents to be used in and around crop production. So even though you may be using a label that's set aside for a lawn, one of the things I would recommend is reading those. Before you do that, actually look up by the active ingredients, those that are for crop production, and understand what the use restrictions are, what the application intervals are, and how long after you apply before harvest should that time frame be, to make sure it's not passing along in your food. So it requires a totally different setup and a different approach. Not totally different, it's just different. There's some different cause for concerns, right? Because you are eating the food, so it's going to require a little bit more effort on your part. I don't know everything about that off the top of my head. I'm way more learned in turfgrass than I am in agriculture, but the one thing I can say is that I know for sure Pre-Emergents are used in agriculture. In fact, we were having one of those conversations today with the farmer I was with about pre-emergent usage in his crop production. He is mainly soybean, corn, and wheat. And just an awesome conversation. So shout out to my favorite and my new farmer friend in Campbellsville, Kentucky. And by the way, a shout out to my other farmer friend in McLean County, Kentucky, Mr. Charlie Mann, one of my favorite people on this planet. And everything is right in the world. Okay, real quick, I got to take a break. And when we come back, let's go ahead and start talking about some general observations for POA Annua regarding Simazine. When we use it, what we can expect from it. So real quick, I'm taking a break. When we come back, let's hammer it out. You're listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, this is Hecubus from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Every Wednesday night.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
Hump Night with The Duck. 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Only on Turfs Up Radio.
Hump day?
We have to put up with this?
The Rock! The hot place!
You're not the top.
Did I say something wrong?
The Duck. On Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Are you a military family with a spouse on deployment away from home? Did you know that nonprofit Project Evergreen has thousands of volunteers across the country ready to help military families with lawn, landscape, and snow removal services? We call it Green Care and Snow Care for troops. If you are a military family and would like to receive this free service, or if you'd like to volunteer to help, visit projectevergreen.org. Project Evergreen, creating a greener, healthier, cooler Earth, 1 yard at a time.
Hey, landscape pros, are you tired of digging through rocks and roots and breaking shovels in the process? Then it's time you checked out the Geo Ripper 616. It's a landscaper's dream with the Makita 6 Series 2-cycle engine producing over 4 horsepower of raw performance. The 616 digs deep in up to 16 inches of the toughest soils. Lighting, landscape, and irrigation contractors already love this improved lightweight trencher with its ability to get in and get out faster, easier, and with less ground disturbance. And you will too. This redesigned Geo Ripper 616 comes with 2 heavy-duty digging chains and a whole mess of helpful extras. To learn more about the Geo Ripper and how it can help you out in the field, visit georipper.com today.
We're back. Okay, so going to talk a little bit about Simazine, and I don't know specifically what study you're talking about where they say Simazine was one of the best, but I can at least start with my experience with Simazine, and then we can move into, at least this is one presentation from Dr. McCullough at the University of Georgia, and this was a research update on herbicide-resistant POA annua in Georgia. So this is a little bit later publication when they're starting to talk about herbicide resistance. I don't know the date of that previous study that was mentioned, if that is pre-herbicide resistance or post-herbicide resistance. So we'll kind of go through this and see what they have to say with it. Now, one of the things I can say that as far as issues I've had with Simazine is a little bit of unpredictability with it, and over time, less levels of control. And let me explain what I mean. When early in my career, when I first got into this, Simazine was extremely effective. You could run Simazine as a fall pre-emergent, right? So you would apply it sometime in, say, October, and then you would apply it again in November. And anything that did break through, which was relatively minimal in the spring, so January, February, March timeframe, you would do spot application or blanket application of atrazine, and that would basically eliminate all of your POA pressure. And it was very effective at the time. So I can remember spraying Fairways in 2006 and it just doing an absolutely amazing job. By the time 2008 rolled around, Simazine was hardly effective on POA annua at all, especially by the time I made it back to Memphis. Apparently Memphis was one of the hotbeds for the onset of major POA annua resistance to our current herbicide programs. And I saw Simazine continually begin to fail and fail and fail more frequently. And that was when Barricade was out, and Barricade, under the trade name Barricade, was going to be the saving grace. Barricade was going to save everything, and started applying Barricade in the fall, and it did well the first couple of years, and then we had a real wet winter, and the breakthrough was abysmal. So then we switched from Barricade to Barricade plus Simazine, and that was very effective. So we're super happy with the results we got out of that. And then do Barricade, Simazine, then followed by a Simazine application to get down that full rate of Simazine, and very pleased with that. At kind of the same time, the spring applications of atrazine stopped working, and one of the things I noticed was that I started putting it in a backpack with a fan tip and would make a lower volume application of atrazine. And so it would be still the same rate, but I'm using less carrier volume per 1,000 square feet. And I noticed I was getting that activity out of atrazine that I expected from it, and I was very pleased with it, and was actually getting some decent control levels on POA. But it didn't take long, but a couple of seasons after that, where no longer was atrazine even really giving me any phytotoxic effects on POA. So Simazine, the triazine herbicides, kind of left my program then because they just weren't working. That was when spring, late winter, early spring applications of Glyphosate were beginning to come around, becoming more popular again, kind of that 2008, 2009 time frame, running a glyphosate plus a 2,4-D or a glyphosate plus 2,4-D plus carfentrazone, like a speed zone in glyphosate, were doing fairly well. So it kind of replaced the usage of Simazine and atrazine in my program. However, I still kept it in as part of that fall where I'd run Barricade Simazine and then in the spring start playing around with more glyphosate. So with that in mind, is Simazine an effective tool for fall pre-emergent? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. But however, I'm going to caveat that with a little bit more additional information. So simple put, and if you just hear yes on this and you think that's my answer, you're wrong. Stick around and you have to follow up more with that. And the reason why is because when we start talking about resistance, and at this point, it's important to keep in mind that with Simazine, you're only dealing with one mode of action. And when we're talking about resistance, and one of the most resistant species of weeds we have out in the world right now being Poa annua, I would never be attempting to mitigate POA issues with a single mode of action. It is a weed species that has way too widespread resistance issues. Therefore, to attack it at a minimum, at an absolute minimum, 3 modes of actions, each providing a different site of action towards POA, would be my new procedure. So as we start looking through what we're seeing as far as POA pressure with Simazine, this is going to be Simazine applied at 1 quart in November across 3 golf courses. At this 1 quart per acre application, we see effective control on 1 out of 3 golf courses. Now, the pressure on golf course 1 and 3 is still what I would consider golf course 1. It's obvious there's 0 control whatsoever. No control. On golf course 2, that would definitely be 100% control or 99% control. And on golf course 3, I would consider that 85 to 90% control. So still, in this type of scenario here, and I will go ahead and throw this image up here, and I will continue to collect images that we can put up here. In this type of scenario, what we see here is that Simazine is relatively unpredictable as a singular, solitary product. And so that's why I would always encourage people when I say, is it effective? Yes, but. There is a caveat to that. Yes, but. And that but is I'm talking about Simazine as a singular product. Now, I'm throwing that up on the screen here so people can take a look at it. And this is you have to remember, this is radio, right? So this is a little bit difficult. Now, across those same golf courses, we will compare that with Revolver, Forum Sulfuron. Forum Sulfuron is not a POA pre-emergent. It is a post-emergent. So what we see here is the results of an application of Revolver applied at 26 ounces per acre. Now, we remember that with the Simazine, golf course 1 and 3 did not respond well to the application of Simazine as far as providing pre-emergent control. However, Revolver in this scenario, golf course 1 and 3 provided adequate control. However, golf course 2, where things were effective with Simazine, we do not, on golf course 2, where things were effective with Simazine, we no longer see the same efficacy with just Revolver. So what that tells us is that we can kind of guess apart on a couple of different things here. And I think the thing we have to focus on is that when we start dealing with resistant species where clearly this is resistant towards triazine herbicides, all of a sudden we have efficacy from using sulfonylureas. But what's kind of odd is that where we see resistance with sulfonylureas, we still see efficacy with triazine herbicides. That is kind of bizarre. Now, the Green Doc is chiming in here. Pick the doc's brain. What up, Ray? He's saying that he considers 1 quart or 1 pound of the dry flowable to be a low rate. Normally, he's doing a 2-pound application followed by a 1 pound later. It's more of a sure thing. Yeah, and normally what I see around here is a 2 pound followed by 1 pound, or a 1 pound followed by 1 pound, or just a single 2 pound application. It's kind of the normal thing. All right, so now what people are looking at here is, we've got Revolver and we have Simazine run as solitary products. Now, this is where it gets interesting. What if we combined a Revolver and Simazine application? Again, so we're talking about diversifying that application into 2 modes of action. And all of a sudden, we start to see something completely different. What we see is much more effective control by combining 2 modes of action versus applying a singular mode of action. And it's kind of interesting, and you may be saying, well, why, how, who, what, when, where, why? But it's pretty simple. What is happening is that you're actually attacking the weed from 2 different sites at this point. And by attacking it at 2 different sites, all of a sudden, you increase your overall efficacy, because where the plant may have an ability to resist certain attacks on certain sites, it may not have developed the mutation to be able to handle 2 sites. See? So, as a singular product, Simazine may lack. As a singular product, Revolver, in this instance, may lack. However, as you combine the 2, that's where you begin to see greater action. Now, the other piece of this that we have to keep in mind is the timing of the application, and I'll tell you why. The reason why is because you're going to get different... Is Matt Fat Finger blasting the video board? I don't know what you're talking about. What you may see happen... kind of lost my thought there. I lost my thought! What you may see happen is that if you misapply your timing, if you mistime your application, then you may lose efficacy of one of your herbicides simply due to temperature restrictions, right? So if you take that same Simazine and Forum Sulfuron application and you delay it back to, say, like January, and say the temperature is like 38 degrees when you make your application, I promise you, you will not see the same level of efficacy than if you apply it in November when you still have decently warm temperatures for things to start working. And I can kind of give you an example here of this would be an application of glyphosate plus Simazine applied in February, and the picture was taken in April. This is on Golf Course 4, and all of a sudden, you lose a significant amount of your overall output. Now, if you give me just a second here, I'm going to save this. This would be Simazine plus Gly. Okay, like that, and then take that, and I'm going to do that like that. Yes, this is radio visuals. Radio visuals. And well, by timing that, what happens is in February, you probably lose a lot of your temperatures pretty significantly, and you're also losing your temperatures that would offer any kind of post-emergent control out of your triazine herbicide in this instance too. And so all of a sudden, we keep getting an intro music for video train. Oh man, that's right. I've got to... let me see if I can turn that off. Let's see. I've got that. Do I have the ability to alter sound? What? I do not. I do not have the ability to turn that off. I thought I might. Here, let me just do this. Oh, crap. No, I can't do that either. Can I do things over there? No. Yeah, I got too many choices here. This is getting a little complicated. Can I do it there? No. I don't know. Okay, so anyway, what I wanted to get at is that by mistiming your application, misapplying your application, what happens is you end up losing your overall efficacy. And this becomes a problem right here with mistiming the application, because what ends up happening is that you make this application, these weeds end up surviving. These weeds have greater potential for passing on those mutations that allow it to survive to an inadequate rate of herbicide applied. And I say an inadequate rate, even though you applied the right rate. What you didn't take into account was how much of it would actually make it into the plant, because when you applied it, it was too cool. The conditions were not conducive for uptake, and thus we run into this situation here. All right, real quick, I've got to take a break. We come back. Let's see what else we get into. You're listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station. Playing the best music.
Hands down and dirty. Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Hey, Green Industry Pros, are you new to Turfs Up Radio and want to learn more? Then plug in your earphones and keep listening, because Turfs Up Radio invites you to listen while you work. Our 24/7 live radio platform keeps you up to date, bringing you new tips and interviews from pros like you who want to elevate and educate the green industry. Can't make it to industry shows or events? Don't worry, Turfs Up Radio will be there bringing you live coverage, getting you in on the action. So keep listening to Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station. Hey, Turfs Up Radio fans, do you know what time it is? That's right, it's time for Turfs Up Radio. Now you can catch us streaming live 24/7 with pro talk, pro tips, and pro interviews. Simply visit turfsupradio.com. Hey, Green Industry Pros, Turfs Up Radio is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right, all you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of The Green Veteran here on Turfs Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's The Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Happy birthday, Shane Brady, the hardest working man in lawn care. Happy friggin' birthday, sir. Glad you're here. I hope you're not working too terribly hard today. I know you're in the middle of aeration and seed season. Hopefully you still got temperatures to get out there and get it done. Make that money, boy! Yeah, all right. So I hope the conversation there, and there's more in this study, and if you would like to see this particular one, let's see, what did I type in? New herbicides in turf, University of Georgia. Yeah, that's going to be, it'll be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, somewhere around there, around the fourth result. If you type in UGA, Simazine, POA, Annua, it'll be somewhere around there too. Let's see, what else was the other one? UGA, Simazine, POA, Annua. It was down there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, where did I find that? I don't know. Yeah, something like that. But the name of this presentation is from Georgia Turf, and it is Research Update on Herbicide-Resistant POA Annua in Georgia, was the name of it. Research Update on Herbicide-Resistant POA Annua in Georgia. And I'll kind of summarize. Let's see if they kind of provide a synopsis here. And let's see. Recommendations on Bermuda and Georgia grass, dinitroalanine-resistant POA control, Spectacle, Curb, a sulfonylurea plus Simazine is their recommendation. They also recommend rotation programs for pre-herbicides. Get off the exclusive Spectacle use in the fall. Every other year, rotate prodiamine, Curb, and Ronstar, but you can't really do that. Spectacle, they note there are concerns over reduced efficacy over years. In Georgia, they recommend 9 ounces per acre as pre-timing. Early post-timings are not recommended for Spectacle or in tank mixtures with triazine herbicides. They also recommend for post-emergent herbicides, Revolver plus Simazine, Monument plus Simazine, Katana plus Simazine, Curb. I don't think that's labeled for residential lawns. SureGuard at 12 ounces per acre when fully dormant. For rescue treatments of mature POA in midwinter, Finale, which is glufosinate, and glyphosate plus Simazine. Other recommendations, let's see, pre-emergent control of POA. Spectacle at 4.5 ounces, followed by 4.5 acres. 4.5 followed by 4.5. In South Florida, Spectacle at 3, followed by 3. Prodiamine at 3/4 of a pound of AI per acre. For post-emergent control, Katana at 1 ounce per acre. Exonerate at 4 to 6 ounces per acre. Katana plus Exonerate after green up in the spring. All providing good levels of efficacy there. Then, kind of the other thing here I kind of wanted to get into, and I do not know the answer to this, but Todd Henry asked me if I had any clue what the primary humectant is used in commercial products like Hydrotane. Is it glycerin, sodium lactate, etc.? To be honest, I have no idea. Just taking a look at what they have on their SDS. It says they have a proprietary blend of humectants and hygroscopic compounds. And what they actually do list as ingredients is sugar, alcohols, polysaccharides, neutral salts of alpha hydroxypropionic acid, and a non-ionic surfactant. So really, that's only the information I have. So it's going to be difficult for me to say. But I know that they actually do have an active ingredient that is a moisture-absorbing polymer, and that is one of the big heavy lifting pieces of it. And I've seen their granular product that is, or whatever this particular polymer active ingredient is. I've seen it on the counter at Site 1 in different places, and this is what kind of sparked me to use it. Was they took it and it was in a jar and they sprinkled it out on the desk. In Site 1, it's basically open air, right? Because you got a garage door on one end and a garage door on the other end, so trucks can pull through. And just through humidity alone and through a 5-minute conversation, it literally liquefied. And then what was interesting is that you could then wait for it to dry out, and eventually it would dry out. Humidity corrected itself or whatever, and wait till middle of the day or something, and it would actually go back into the powdered form. So kind of a neat thing there that normally when you see those types of things, right, I think of like the polymer material that they put into a diaper, for instance, right? And yes, that'll swell up and get real big. Aquazorb is one of those products that has that same kind of methodology. I used a tree fertilizer one time that was full of Aquazorb, and you go and you apply it, and you get all these nice little jelly. Originally, there were crystals that looked like part of the granular fertilizer that jellified and got real big and swollen where it had absorbed all this water through rain. But totally, not totally different, but different concept there, where hydrotane is actually working to pull atmospheric moisture, not necessarily just water applied moisture, and holding on to that. And then also kind of the the big deal here, the big kicker here, is that it does have that ability to retain moisture. It's not just where a surfactant's going to infiltrate water. It has actual retention mechanisms as well. So, different. But as far as what the specific chemicals is, I have no idea. Not even close. So, yes, it is like a similar or seed moist type of deal. And like I said, I've used it professionally over the last decade in several different instances. And my primary use for it, and where it made sense for me financially on the pro side of things, is when I had to do big acreage without irrigation. And when you don't have irrigation, obviously it's a big risk, right? And so to mitigate that amount of risk, I would build that into cost for the service and the requirement, where I wouldn't feel comfortable taking on a job unless I was using something like hydrotane. And at the time, well, even still now, hydrotane is the only thing I know that functions quite like it as well as it does. So that was where I used it. Big acreage, no irrigation, no access to water. You're just relying 100% on the rain you get. And specifically what I face here in Knoxville is when we are in seed establishment season is actually our dry season. So that makes it kind of a pain in the ass, because Knoxville is the place where we get 45, 48 inches of rain a year, and it's pretty evenly distributed through every month of the fall, through every month of the year, except September. So for what it's worth, it's just kind of a bad thing for seed establishment here without the use of something like that. That is hilarious. Do you want to do it on the camera? Look at this. My daughter has picked up one of these things that hold your mouth open for some kind of game. You're supposed to wear it, and when you talk, you have to guess what the other person's saying, because it eliminates the complete and total use of your lips. So you sound goofy when you talk. That's funny. All right. Actually, I'll get to this question here, and I don't know the answer to it. It says, can you use amphoteric surfactants on turf? I don't know what an amphoteric surfactant is. Let me see what these are. Amphoteric surfactant. Betanes, amine oxides are two more commonly used amphoteric surfactants. Betanes contain both anionic and cationic groups, such as carboxylate and quaternary ammonium compounds, respectively. So if I had a list, I could probably look at it and see if surfactant list. This is, yes. So let me see. Yeah. You see lots of things in the turf industry, right? So let's see. Laurel, glycine, betaine, amidosulfobetaine, laurel propanol sulfonate. So, for instance, I know there's lots of anionic surfactants or cationic. Yes, I'm looking at these right now. Yes, a lot of these are used. Let me see. So I'll name some common ones here. We see sodium lauryl sulfate. We see sodium laureth sulfate. We see ammonium lauryl sulfate. We see ammonium lauryl ether sulfate. We see diacetyl diammonium chloride. Actually, no, I have not seen that. So, yes, if those all fit into that category, then I would say yes, they do. But as far as an amphoteric surfactant, and if I'm understanding this correctly, they contain both an anionic and cationic group, such as a carboxylate or quaternary ammonium compound, respectively. I believe you would be fine in this situation. Now, where you wouldn't want to use this would be when you see label recommendations of specifically a non-ionic surfactant, and there's a reason why you use those, because otherwise, using an anionic surfactant or a cationic surfactant is that it will have the ability to hold on and bind to different things or render parts of the herbicide inert, right? And so that's where it can get a little bit squirrely, and you have to be careful. And it's not to say that it won't necessarily have from not necessarily that every herbicide will have the same reactivity to it, but there is potential for a lot of unknowns to exist there that are outside the scope of testing that have been performed. So it would be kind of a shot in the dark, and the potential for phytotoxic effects or inadequate efficacy becoming a reality. So it would be something you would have to test really on your own. You're saying cocamidopropyl betaine. Let me see here. I'm going to do a quick Google search real quick and see if I recognize it as being in any see if I see it in any special kind of fertilizer or turf product. I'm not seeing it. I see it in one study, which is pretty interesting. I see it actually in a biochar study, a method for application of biochar in turf grass and landscaping environments. And I don't know why this particular is mentioned here. Let's see what it says. The following non-ionic types, such as ethyl oxalated alcohols, phenols, lauryl alcohol, ethoxylates, fatty acid esters, sorbitan, amines, ammoniums, quaternary ammoniums, and amphoteric types such as betaines. Additionally, biosurfactants, microbes which produce biosurfactants such as flavobacterium may also be used. Okay, so they're using a surfactant in this area where they are actually treating a biochar under vacuum to infiltrate the surfactant into the biochar to increase the water holding capacity of the soil or infiltration of water even through the biochar. Let's see, what is the total design of this product here? This is interesting. I love doing stuff like this. I can spend hours a day. What do they call it? Chasing shiny balls. I'm a big fan of chasing shiny balls like this. A method of applying biochar to turf and landscape to allow the turf and landscape to effectively be maintained under reduced water and reduced fertilizer applications. So, yep, there we go. That would be for water retention. So, in my opinion, I do not know the rate, Andres. I can't say without a doubt it will be 100% effective, but in my opinion, that I feel confident enough in that application that it is okay to try. I cannot tell you a rate. I cannot tell you anything other than I think it's okay, and you would be doing so at your own risk, at your own disposal, and please report back how effective or ineffective it is, because I would be curious to know. All right, real quick, I've got to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue on this beautiful Friday. Yeah! You're listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of The Green Veteran here on Turfs Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's the Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, Green Industry Pros, Turfs Up Radio is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right. All you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of the Green Veteran here on Turfs Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's the Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, this is Hecubus from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Poor timing on the transition there. I do that every time. It's kind of an accident because I just have it going in the background and I turn it up and down. So kind of the next question here is, can you explain the difference between anionic and non-ionic cationic surfactants and when to use each? Well, the reality of the situation is that it's going to be difficult for me to say when to use each because I don't know. But I'm kind of doing some Googling searches here, and pretty simply, so when you hear anionic or cationic, it has to do with the charge on the head of the surfactant, right? So when you are talking about surfactants, you know, you have these long, again, we're kind of going back to the whole idea of a saponification reaction where you have these long fatty acid chains, you know, that get, these long molecules, and basically what you're doing is you're taking a fatty acid and you're breaking the ester bonds with the hydroxide, and it puts these long chains on it, and then it'll put a charge on the front, and they can either be a positive charge or a negative charge, or in the instance of the amphoteric surfactant, which Andres was talking about there, have a positive and negative charge, and then you have non-ionic surfactants which have no charge whatsoever. So as far as when to use each, really, I think when you're talking about charged surfactants with a charge, you're typically talking about a soil-based application, right? So it's going to have to do with some sort of infiltration method into the soil. And most of these that we see are going to be sulfates or sulfonates, which are, like when you see your sodium lauryl ether sulfate, right? And that is going to be an anionic surfactant, and that's going to be used as like a wetting agent that when you apply to infiltrate water into the soil, right? And then when you have, and then we'll talk about like a non-ionic surfactant. This is going to be like a surfactant you use to go alongside with your weed control. And as a general rule of thumb, when to use each, it is always check your label. Your label will tell you whether to use a non-ionic surfactant or a methylated seed oil or a crop oil concentrate. And you have to understand the testing they've done has shown that you get greatest efficacy out of whatever surfactant they recommend. And or you get the least amount of phytotoxicity or collateral damage that takes place to your plants by using that, right? So, and I'll give you an example in terms of the amount of damage, collateral damage, meaning damage to the plants you're not trying to kill. In this instance, it would be like our desirable turfgrass species, right? So if you're applying a 2,4-D, for instance, and you apply it with a non-ionic surfactant at 1.5 ounces per thousand, you're likely not going to see any issues. If you then move up to a methylated seed oil, there are potentials for you to begin seeing issues where you might get a bit more discoloration, whereas with a non-ionic surfactant, you would see no discoloration. And then as you move up to a crop oil concentrate, in that particular instance, you may run into a situation where you're actually seeing a lot of collateral damage. Crop oil concentrates can be very intensive because the penetrative power of a crop oil concentrate to move herbicide through the leaf tissue has much higher probability than if you use a non-ionic surfactant in that regard, because a crop oil concentrate or an oil in general is going to have just, it works more on penetrating that leaf tissue, penetrating that cuticle of the leaf. Then if you want to take it even kind of to the next step, you can start to get real squirrely when you start moving into organosilicones or methylated organosilicones. It gets to a whole new next level of squirrely, and also a potential for collateral damage. So as a general rule of thumb, the label is the law. And if you see a product that is labeled as a wetting agent, whether that chances are that's not going to be a non-ionic surfactant, that will either be some sort of anionic or cationic surfactant, and understand that's what its purpose is. Its purpose is for infiltration, which is a good thing. That is a good thing. I don't want anybody to get too upset that I'm over here bashing on liquid aeration again, because there are positives to wetting agents, but what they are not doing is alleviating bulk density of the soil. I think I got all that out. And yeah. So kind of interesting, and I found, let's see here, this is a prospector, and they kind of go through the difference of surface active agents, right? And so they go over some non-ionic surfactants, so polyoxyethylene glycol, alkyl phenol ethers, which is normally what you see in most of the wetting agents that we're buying to use as a fertilizer, as an herbicide adjuvant, right? And then when we start getting into the sodium lauryl ether sulfate, which is going to be closer to a shampoo, which is what we typically see used in wetting agents, right? And what's interesting here is that they also include lignosulfonate in this, which I forget. Lignosulfonate is considered a surfactant. We see lignosulfonates oftentimes used with stabilizing things like humic acids as well. So lignosulfonates and humic acids kind of fall into that anionic surfactant space as well. And then as we start moving into cationic surfactants, these are very uncommon. I've never seen any of these in used in a turf product. So benzalkonium chloride, never heard of that. Benzethonium chloride, BZT, never heard of that in lawn care either. Or alkyl trimethylammonium salts, cetyl trimethylammonium bromide, not familiar with that. Cetyl trimethylammonium chloride, not familiar with that either. And then we have, this is the amphoteric surfactants. And to be honest, I've never seen any of these used in lawn care either, aside from that one patent there. And I did not see the name of that product. This is from Carbon Technologies Holding, LLC. Oh, this is from Cool Planet. I know these guys. I don't think Cool Planet is around anymore. They have another company that's resumed operation. But very cool. That's interesting. I had no idea that was Cool Planet. I know those guys really well. Cationic surfactants are normally disinfectants. Interesting. All right, and here's kind of the next piece of this, and I think this is something we can definitely talk about. We were talking about speed zone, 3-way ester, carfentrazone on a cool season lawn and causing brown spots where spray. And I want to make a point right now that pretty much when you include there is a PPOI in that, and that PPOI is carfentrazone. And carfentrazone, sulfentrazone, golly, what is the one in SureGuard? Flumioxazine, all of those are PPOIs, right? And PPOIs actually cause a bit of phytotoxicity, collateral damage, if you will. So the other thing, too, is that an ester-based herbicide like 2,4-D ester is going to be very sensitive to heat. So as a general rule of thumb, you want to spray that in cooler weather, right? And expect a little bit of discoloration to occur because of the carfentrazone in that product. Discoloration from speed zone is perfectly normal. Perfectly normal. Totally normal. Totally normal. Todd, no, Cool Planet was the Cool Terra, same company. They were bought out by a different company in Minnesota, and so they're kind of moving into a totally different industry now. And that brings us to 5 o'clock, and that means what?
It's time for the lunch factor.
Time
What's
to
up?
crack a beer.
O'clock.
What are you doing, Lushy?
Just sit back and relaxing.
Good. Good. What do you have planned for the weekend? Because it's Friday. It's 5 o'clock. It is the start of SEC football season. Do you have a full dedicated Saturday schedule of doing nothing but watching SEC football?
Probably, most likely. Cindy's going to work, so I got a free day of rain.
Yes.
Hope she doesn't hear that. I'll get busted.
Let me tell you. Let me ask you, who's going to win, UT or South Carolina? Tennessee versus South Carolina.
Oh, I think that's going to be UT.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about. That is exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, I was going to be mad, but
who's going to be mad?
Isn't Paul roots for South Carolina? I know he's a North Carolina boy, but
no, I think he's an NC State guy. I don't know. Does he root for South Carolina too? He might. I don't know.
He might. He's down there. He likes those Carolina boys.
They're all weird. That's a joke. That's a joke. I'm kidding, Paul. I do not think you're weird. If anything, I'm the weird one.
You skipped my question, so I figured I had to call in.
What was your question? I didn't see it.
Nope. We were talking about soil surfactants, and I typed in, I got some Turf Fuel Vanquish.
Turf Fuel Vanquish?
Yeah.
Let me see. Turf Fuel Vanquish.
I don't know what kind of water I bought. It's really thick and viscous, so it makes me feel good.
Vanquish, localized dry spot before they take hold of you. All right, let's take a look at the label and see what they have here. This is a blend of a polyhydroxyl ethyl alkoxy alkaline oxide. So this being an oxide is, I think you're in the area of an anionic surfactant. So let me give you some other examples of, oddly.
I picked something that stumps you?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not super versed in this world. It gets a little squirrely over here for sure, because these are names that I don't normally know.
I bought it mainly for doing my really bare dirt seedings.
Yep.
Give me a couple weeks of feeling a little more comfortable that water's sticking around and moving through the soil nicely.
Sure.
Then I'll probably follow up again just to make sure it's moving and sticking around in a few weeks when I go back and do a little follow-up application on them. So,
yeah, that sounds absolutely wonderful. So here's kind of an interesting thing is that this may be this may be being an oxide may be one of those amphoteric surfactants that we were talking about earlier. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what I'm going for. But at least the first part of this with the polyhydroxyethyl alkoxy is going to be closer to a non-ionic surfactant. So I wonder if this has been manipulated in some way to give it the amphoteric characteristics of having both a positive and negative charge. I don't know. Kind of interesting. Cool little active ingredient there. Let's see if I see anything on the SDS that may give me a little bit more information. Nope, kind of the same thing. Let me Google that particular active ingredient and see if there's any additional information on there. Aquatrize pelletized soil amendment aids in hand watering, plus is a pelletized soil amendment formulation of No, there's a few other products that have this actually in it. Tri-Wet from Prime Source Select. Respond 3G greens grade granular. Beyond polyethylene glycol. What? No, that's not it. Suffusion tablets. I don't know. Kind of cool. I like it.
Nice. Something different.
Yeah, I dig it.
So what are you doing this weekend? Anything fun and exciting?
No, not specifically. I got back from Kentucky a little bit today. Did a little day trip. And kind of brought on some new projects going to be taken on. So it was good to go up there, build a relationship with that farmer who I have previously not done any work with. I think we're definitely going to be able to pull some very, very interesting things out of the air. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, and it's going to be
exciting.
It's going to be really cool too. I'm telling you.
Any projects around the house? Any shed fires or anything? Or
no. In fact, I just may go ahead and burn the rest of it down, including my house. I'll probably save my computer and my kids' clothes so they don't have to go without. And I'll probably save a couple meals worth of food as well. But the rest of it, we'll just go ahead and burn down.
Just burn it down.
Just burn it down.
Well, you have to go to a yard sale and get an old computer to throw in there to say that's what went up, so you can get recouped that cost.
I didn't think about that.
You got to think.
I'm not exactly well versed in insurance fraud, so actually, before I start the fire, I'll call you since you seem to be well aware.
Yeah, I'm
listening.
They're all listening. No, we just wrapped up round 5 aeration overseeding. I think I might have a sneaky aeration or 2 that I forgot to do. I'm sure I'll get a phone call. Why didn't I do it yet? But I think we're cruising now.
Well, that's good. That's good. You get those last 2-3 applications down, burn through them, smoke through them. These are usually the easier ones, except for when you have to deal with the leaves in the yard. You may have to skip a few, but if you're going granular, that makes it at least somewhat remotely easier because you can just spread it and forget it.
Yep. No, if it's mostly granular at the end of the year, and if there's a heavy leaf coverage or something, I'll just last year Shane and I did it together, and I had him walk around with the backpack blower and kind of just turn all the leaves over to try to get the granulars down into the grass so they wouldn't get sucked up. And
wow,
that's all you can do. Customer service, baby.
Yeah, that is only you, Lushy. Only you. I hope you do that while toting around the yard with a bia in your hand?
Some of my customers are excellent. They come out with beers. Shane doesn't like it when I go because they all want to talk and have a beer.
It's funny. I think that's a pretty significant difference between the North and the South. You don't see that in the South, and if you do, everybody feels guilty about it. Where they come sneaking up on you, and they're like, hey, Matt, I put a beer in the front seat of your truck. Don't tell anybody. And you're like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, be quiet. I don't want my neighbors to hear.
All right. Well, I'm just going to go down to the end of the driveway and shotgun it and move on to my next stop.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like up there in New England, everybody's just kind of like, hey, it's a Bud Light. Have at it.
I tell you what, there is nothing better when we do have a snowstorm and you're in a neighborhood and you're out shoveling and you're helping and it turns into a block party. It truly does. And to be the plow guy, it is utterly frustrating because you just want to stop and have a few beers with them, but it's frowned upon. Then they start throwing the empty cans at you because you just plowed them back in after they just shoveled for 6 hours to get to the end of the driveway. You to only roll back and say, yep, we're just finishing up and pushing everything back to the edge. Here's another 2 feet of packed slush. Thanks. Have a nice day.
Boy, I do not envy that. That just, you know what? That every time people start talking about plowing snow, I think about when we had the last ice storm we had, where I actually had to plow snow and was there for, I don't know, it was like 30 hours or something continually, and I drank so much coffee that my skin felt like I had needles all on it from wearing my sweater, and I was sweating, and it was like 8 degrees outside, and was just whacked out on coffee. It was so miserable.
Yeah, and then you get the lovely people that are standing in the middle of the road with their shovels swearing at you.
I've never had that happen.
I had a guy threaten he had a heart condition, and I just plowed his driveway in. He was going to sue the city if he had a heart attack. We've had guys throw snow and shovels at trucks.
What? Why?
Because it is frustrating when you shoveled your driveway, especially because we don't always get like what Connor gets, like nice fluffy snow. We can get some nasty stuff. So like it could be a foot of powder, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the storm, it turns to ice or rain. So now you come out, and some people come out, and it's, they're out there at 3 o'clock in the morning because they got to get to work, and they're shoveling 6 inches of slush, wet. We call it heart attack snow. And they get down the end and they clear out the end of the driveway, and we're still going around trying to keep everything open, and we're pushing back and cleaning up. And we put a windrow right down on the end of the driveway that fills it right back in. And they are irate, absolutely irate, because they're at their wit's end.
I get it.
I get it.
That I don't. Yeah, that freaks me out. Goodness gracious, I have a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach right now just thinking about that.
Yeah, I usually just wait till they go back inside, and then I drive back by and lift the plow up and shave another foot off the curb line and push it all in their driveway.
You just push it right up through the front yard up to their front doorstep.
There's a couple little, you lift that plow up, you can ride that front tire into the snowbank a little bit, and you can roll a nice new wave that'll come down. And if you that's the biggest thing, is if you shoveled it out and there's a hole, the snow doesn't keep going. It empties the plow in there, and all you got to do is let off the gas a little bit, and all that snow kind of funnel in there.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Snow manipulation.
It's what you do,
Yes, that is exactly what you do, and I'm glad you do it, and I'm glad I don't, and I respect you for it.
I'm glad we're not doing it yet. We still got time. We're still growing, though. Get back to the growing grass.
Yeah, one day if you ever need me up there to help you with that, I promise you I'm probably not going to come.
No, you won't. You won't be. You won't any part of it. You asked me if you could actually fly into New England in April, and you were afraid you were going to get snowed in and stuck here.
I was.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
I don't know these things. Again, if it's north of Kentucky, to me, it's all Canada. I honestly believed at some point in my life that if you were north of Kentucky, there was a perpetual state of snow on the ground.
No, just as you go further north of us, you only have 2 or 3 months, and then it's back. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, that's frightening. I know a guy that lives in Camden, Maine, and he said, 6 months out of the year, there's not snow on the ground. I was like, what is that? That's disgusting.
Yeah, no, thank you. We get a couple more months, which is nice. we may actually get some rain. They're talking about. We have had for the month of September less than a half an inch of rain. So we may actually get a rainstorm on Monday.
I hope you do. I hope you do.
It is dry.
I do not wish that upon everybody. In fact, somebody was actually commenting earlier and said, hopefully we get some rain soon. Man, I hate it because it's the worst time to be dry. I have to say that we just got a pretty significant rainfall over the last 2 days. We had to have at least an inch and a half. I don't know. It may have been more than that. Maybe closer to 2 inches. But, boy, it was that perfect, slow, drawn out over 2 days, 2.5 days. It just gave it adequate time to soak in. It was, man, we had a perfect rain, Lushy.
Yeah, that's what we need. We need that on and off for a few days. Let that soil soak it up and get some more. I don't want 2 inches in 2 to 3 hours and watch it all run down the driveway and down the streets into the storm drains.
No,
we got to get it to soak in a little bit.
Are you kind of catching the bands off that tropical storm that rolled through?
We got the wind. That was it.
Just the wind.
Just the wind. Yep.
Wow.
Just to help dry things out a little more.
Wow. What a shame.
And it's I think we had in the 80s today. We're back up into the 80s. It warmed back up.
My goodness. In the 80s?
Yep. I think low 80s, high 70s
here.
Yeah, no, I know we were up into the 80s. It was nice. It was comfortable. It got warm, but it was nice.
Taking a look at it here. So in the last 24 hours, in the last 48 hours, we got 2.5 inches of rain. So there you go.
We haven't had that in 3 months.
Man, that is a crying shame.
So yeah, we're hanging in there. I tell you what, the lawns that don't usually dry up, or they're just hanging on that edge, are starting to dry out. Even some of the irrigated lawns are still looking a little funky and have dry spots. It cooled down. People started turning the irrigation down. They're like, "Oh, this is great." They figured the rain was coming. We usually have a nice, few days here and there, and nothing beats a natural rain.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And man, you can try everything in the world to achieve that same result out of irrigation, and it just ain't even close.
Oh, Shane! Oh, you'll enjoy this. Shane had his first customer go out and inspect that he did put down fertilizer where he said he did. She stopped him out front. "Hey, did you put fertilizer out in the backyard over by the driveway?" "Yep, yeah, I did." "Oh, are you sure?" He's like, "Yeah, no, I did." So he said, went out. He's out. We're doing a little free spot treating for this nice little old lady. He's going around with some seed, and he's hitting some spots that had looked a little funny. Comes around, and there she is out in the backyard, bent over, looking in the ground, trying to see if she can see the fertilizer.
Bless your heart.
He called me twisted. He was so angry. He's standing right in front of me. That's what reminded me. Oh, he was so mad. He can laugh about it now, but he was fit to be tied.
Oh boy. Yeah, man, I tell you what, when people ask me if I miss it, those are the things I do not miss. And unfortunately, I have a lot of memories of that. So,
and if we were putting down like X-Green, she never would see it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it would be impossible.
Be impossible. You'd never see that. So, yep. I'm like, he called me. I said, talked him off the edge a little bit. Said, "Yep, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Yes, they'll be looking. So just remember that."
Well, Lushy, I'm up against a break. Thank you for calling in, sir. You have a fantastic weekend, and don't do anything I wouldn't do.
I'll try not to.
All right, you're going to sign me out?
I'll sign you out. And I want everybody to remember, you're listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, landscape pros, are you tired of digging through rocks and roots and breaking shovels in the process? Then it's time you checked out the GeoRipper 616. It's a landscaper's dream with the Makita 6 Series 2-cycle engine producing over 4 horsepower of raw performance. The 616 digs deep in up to 16 inches of the toughest soils. Lighting, landscape, and irrigation contractors already love this improved lightweight trencher with its ability to get in and get out faster, easier, and with less ground disturbance. And you will too. This redesigned GeoRipper 616 comes with 2 heavy-duty digging chains and a whole mess of helpful extras. To learn more about the GeoRipper and how it can help you out in the field, visit georipper.com today.
Are you a military family with a spouse on deployment away from home? Did you know that nonprofit Project Evergreen has thousands of volunteers across the country ready to help military families with lawn, landscape, and snow removal services? We call it Green Care and Snow Care for troops. If you are a military family and would like to receive this free service, or if you'd like to volunteer to help, visit projectevergreen.org. Project Evergreen, creating a greener, healthier, cooler Earth, 1 yard at a time.
Every Wednesday night.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
Hump Night with The Duck. 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Only on Turf's Up Radio.
Hump day?
Do we have to put up with this?
The Rock! The hard place!
You're not the top.
Did I say something wrong?
The Duck. On Turf's Up Radio. Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, this is Hecubus from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Welcome back. Whoa. Had a little offbeat there that was going on. Number one prospect, who's Green Doc that you learned so much from? The Pick the Doc Brain segment I have on Monday, it's him. Every Monday, right here on Turf's Up Radio at 4 p.m. You get to meet the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Ray, the Green Doc of Hawaii. The only place you're going to find him unadulterated, unedited, for your listening pleasure. You'll see him in the chat from time to time here. We see Ray 3472. So kind of some information. I had been talking about soil tests, and we were talking about the ion exchange method used by My Soil. And they asked about the difference between a Malic 3, which is stated in the MLSN, and the ion exchange method that they use. So I thought I would read this comment here, which is kind of interesting, and I can kind of refute some of this, and some of it's true too. But it's again, when you try and destandardize things like this, it gets a little hairy. Anyway. It says, thank you for the inquiry here. The numbers are all in parts per million on a report. Because we use the ion exchange method with a different extraction, our ranges will be different than the method you see in the MLSN because they use the Malic 3 extraction. In simple, the Malic 3 extraction is telling you what nutrients are extractable from your soil with other chemicals, but it doesn't mean those extracted nutrients are in a form and amounts available for plants to take up. The Malic test also requires them to dry and grind your soil, two processes which change the physical and chemical characteristics of the soil and allow for extraction of nutrients that may not be available. The resins we use in an ion exchange method use your field moist soil to adsorb available nutrients. There are other conventional extractions such as ammonium acetate, bray, weak bray, and others that will have different ranges for nutrients as well. With the conventional extraction methods, it is just a guess which one is best for your specific soil, whereas the resin test, you don't have any guessing. You have to settle in on one you feel is best for you. We have taken similar approach in calibrating the ranges in the resin method by collecting tissue and soil samples from turfgrass areas and correlating them for high-quality turf. There are some overlap in a few of the nutrient ranges, but some will obviously differ depending on the extraction method and calibration. I hope this helps. So pretty interesting information here and a little more expanding on this ion exchange method. But a couple of notes as far as the extraction methods you see out there for ammonium acetate, bray, weak bray, and others. That will have, and it is not a total guess, right? And so a lot of legitimized labs will tell you which one to use, or will tell you they will use a different one based on your soil pH. So if you have high pH, they will default to a different method of phosphorus extraction versus if you have say like an acidic soil, they may use a different extraction method based off your soil pH. So it's not a guess. There's lots and lots of literature out there to explain to you which one to use based on your soil pH. So obviously, as you take in a sample, the first thing you do is you test the pH of the soil to determine the types of extraction methods you're going to do. Now, do you have to specify that to every lab you use? No, because any legitimate lab knows to do that. That's kind of the steps of taking a soil sample, right? And then the second piece of this is that, grinding will change the physical and chemical characteristics of the soil. I highly disagree that grinding the soil is not going to alter the chemical characteristics of the soil. However, and then to say that using a resin is not going to alter the chemical or physical characteristics of the soil. When you take this material, you fill it with water and you add a resin to it, actually that's exactly what's taking place. You're altering the physical and chemical characteristics of the soil. Now, obviously the resin they're using has a very high adsorbative capacity, and as we know, when you are adsorbing something, you are attempting to latch onto materials that are in its ionic state, right? So different resins, different materials are going to adsorb cations, some are going to adsorb anions, and so that way it's kind of more of a water extraction, right? So you see what is in solution and thus plant available, where like a total acid digestion, for instance, say something like a Malate 3 is seeing what all the potential available nutrients of the soil is. And even though in short form they may not be directly available to the plant because it has precipitated out, eventually at some point the exudates from the root system will allow that to be taken up as soon as the plant reaches a certain level of maturity. So maybe necessarily in a seed-like setting, obviously that's when the soluble phosphorus portion of it will be most important. And even though it may quickly be rendered plant unavailable through applications or whatever the case may be, like calcium or magnesium may render that non-plant available. As the plant reaches a certain level of maturity, it will be able to tap in that because root exudates are going to release chemicals like citric acid to aid in the uptake and to aid in the fracturing of these insoluble molecules to put them back into an ionic state that can be taken up by the plant, if that makes sense. And kind of moving back into the whole chemistry thing. I feel like really this whole episode's been pretty deep in the chemistry sphere. Less biology, more chemistry kind of day today, and that's fine. That coincides with everything I've been going through, so I'll take it. But again, back in this kind of explanation we've got going here, so this would be closer to a water extraction. water extraction. Because you're just absorbing that which is in an ionic state, meaning that is in solution. You're just able to measure the nutrients that actually went into solution. Got it? I think that helps. I think so. Yeah. My CEC is at a 9. Is using X-Soil to raise the CEC, won't it? Yes, it will. And, you know, and is 9 necessarily a bad CEC? No, it's not. There's nothing really wrong with that. Live streams are a scam. Change my mind. Nope. Totally going for it. That's 100% what it is. I don't know. There's nothing really about it. You know, the beautiful thing about them and why they are such scams is because this is all stream of consciousness. You can't really prepare for a 2-hour piece of content to be generated every day. You know, you could do your best to try and take notes and say, oh, I want to cover this, oh, I want to cover that, and that's fine and dandy. But the reality of the situation is this, is when you sit down in front of the microphone, all that goes out the window, and it's just, okay, I can take a look at my notes, but then it just, you're like, I don't have the same passion for it that I did earlier, so I just gotta talk. I gotta figure out how to fill the voids, the sound voids, with additional sound, and hopefully make it educational in the same process. So, Bryson, thank you for sending that over to me. Their response, and again, you know, my whole take on this whole thing is that that's great, but water extractions don't really give you the whole picture, because if you're always applying for solubility, you're never taking into account the ability of the plant to kind of take care of itself. And that's where we can start getting into the weirdness of inducing a bit of abiotic stress or biotic stresses on the plant and allowing it to fend for itself at a certain point. And, you know, it's at that point, you're really playing hanky-panky and playing semantics, and you're trying to come up with an argument that fits your story. You know, it's just, in my opinion, this does not give you the full picture. This gives you a very brief cross-section of what's actually taking place in your soil, and doesn't really actually give you the input you need to alter your application regimen. Yeah. Yeah. And the other piece of it, too, is that you have to remember when things are in its ionic form, they typically can leach pretty quickly, except phosphorus. Phosphorus isn't going to move very quickly. But, you know, specifically potassium, and I know in this instance they're also testing nitrogen. Nitrogen, you can leach, or what's the word I'm looking for? Denitrification. So it can get a little squirrely. Gary Evans said, Rhizomatous tall fescue doesn't seem to do well in summer heat. I have to overseed heavy every year. Do you feel the same way? No, I really don't, because I don't know what you have to compare it to other tall fescues, but it tends to do well. I don't know what RTF you're using. The only ones I have experience with are the Mountain View seeds, and I have to say they've actually held up to the heat extremely well. And the other piece of this, too, is that I would not be overseeding heavy. If you're doing any kind of overseeding, again, you're talking about tall fescue, you need airflow. Because what's happening in the heat, you have to remember, what is it with tall fescue in the heat that you have to watch out for? It's disease. It's not if you get disease, it's when you get disease. And what can you do from a turf management standpoint to mitigate the potential for the disease to cause irreversible damage to your lawn? Well, part of that disease mitigation program should be cultural, in the sense that you're not applying seed too heavy. So when you're performing an overseed, and the general recommendation is 4 to 5 pounds per thousand, it's actually critical that you actually apply the seed in that rate. And what's interesting is that the more density you end up getting in that lawn, you begin to back it down. So actually, Pete Denny and I have had long conversations before over the years and talking about how when lawns get to a certain point, even overseeding, we may even go as low as like 2 pounds per thousand. So if you could tell me what kind of rhizomatic tall fescue you're dealing with, one of the other things we can do is take that information and then plug it into the NTEP, the National Turfgrass Evaluation Program, and see what quality those specific RTF varieties have fared across the country in different environments. Because just because it's an RTF seed, it doesn't mean it's going to perform the same as the other tall fescue seeds. So case in point, typically I know the Mountain View seeds are in the top 20 for in the lateral spread varieties. They call them lateral spread varieties. They do not call them rhizomatous tall fescues, even though I think another company, I think Beerenberg, has rhizomatous tall fescue trademarked or something, and that's why they can't use it. And again, I don't have experience with Beerenberg seed. I don't know. I've never looked at the NTEP trials for their specific seed. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do right now, is head over to ntep.org. I love ntep.org because there is just so much information here to use at your disposal. So I'm going to go over to tall fescue, and I'm going to go for the latest. They have a 2019 data progress report, and I'm going to go to turf grass quality because it's kind of a good general consensus here. And Gary, I don't know, for tall fescue and bare dirt, I typically did 10 pounds per thousand. So I'm going to go over here to the transition zone and take a look at what has performed as the most ideal turf. And actually, the place I'm going to pay attention to is the Tennessee column, because that's closest to where I am, but you also have a North Carolina column over here as well too. All of these are primarily research names that they have not given a name to. So if let's say, hang on, let me see here. RTF tall fescue. Let's see if I can find a cultivar here. So RTF would be a Beerenberg variety. And do they have a list of the cultivars that they include in here? I do not see any specific our Turf Saver, RTF tall fescue. This one does not have a label. So they don't let me see if this one lists individual cultivars that may be on here. Lush Dense Turf has a patent. This is Beerenberg Experimental RTF. They do not state what this is. Titan Ultra Valkyrie LS. So in my yard, I have Valkyrie LS, Screamer LS, and it seems like something else. There's definitely something else. Firecracker LS, but anyway, that is what I have in my yard. Spider LS is one of them. I know I definitely have Valkyrie LS, and golly, I can't remember the other one. I can't remember. What's up, Jackie? Actually, yeah, he sent me a little information the other day, and so anyway, that will be going out to you soon here. All right, I'm gonna go back in time, and I'm gonna take a look at the where am I? The 2013 and 2017 final report, and we'll go over to turf grass quality, and I'm going to go over here to, that's traffic stress. Where am I? Yes, the transition region. Where am I? You said Raptor was one of them. So Raptor 3 scored really well in Tennessee, in Virginia, in Kentucky, in Arizona. It did extremely poorly in Missouri. It did okay in North Carolina, and it did very poor in Oklahoma as well. So, just kind of some insight here. Let me see if I got any RTFs on here. No, they do not list. They do not list what they are. But as far as Raptor 3, it was good in certain areas. And this is what's beautiful. You can kind of go through here and pick these. Valkyrie LS did exceptionally well. Again, struggled in Oklahoma. And so what I would do is, say you're in Oklahoma and you're looking for something, I would look for what scored the highest in that area. So, we go over here and we're like, oh, okay, so Rowdy, SRX TPC did great in Oklahoma. We had Hound Dog 8 did great. Leonardo did great. That's part of Winning Colors. ISTF 311, whatever that is, it did good. Wichita did good. So, there's some in here that actually did. Oh, we go to the next page and we've got even more options here. So we have, what is that? PPGTF? I don't know what that is. We have Toronto, which did exceptionally well, one of the best performers in Oklahoma. Rain Dance, one of the best performers in Oklahoma. So, when you get into different areas, you're going to see just totally different performers. Like specifically here in Knoxville, if we sorted this by Knoxville, F711 was one of the highest performers. Thor was one of the highest performers. That's always one of the top dogs that you see. Standout was one of the highest performers. Rambler was one of the highest performers. Titanium 2 LS was one of the high performers. Fourth Millennium was one of the highest performers. Traverse. So it's just you get different outputs from different regions based on soil structure, temperature structure, humidity levels, ambient temperatures. All those play a factor, and because of that, it's why it's important that things like the NTEP trials actually exist. So I hope that helps. If you feel like you're kind of struggling in that area, first thing is I would back down significantly on your seed rate. Pay attention to what those recommended seed rates are on the label. I try to follow those as best I could. If you're seeding bare areas, I would try and do that individually as kind of a separate deal. Go over it, broadcast it once over the entire lawn. And then as you go back to those other areas, that's when you go in and do your second application over it. So you're basically doubling up. So if you're doing a broadcast application at 5, then you go over your bare areas a second time. That would effectively be 10 there. Jason said, I'm 9 days of throwing Kentucky bluegrass seed to fill in some bare spots, but I also overseeded. Could I mow now so the seedlings down get shaded out? My savage Kentucky bluegrass grows really fast. What? Is it potential for them to get shaded out? I would go ahead and do it because chances are the seed is going to, if they can find a will, it will find a way. Yeah, you're welcome, Gary. It's one of those things to take into consideration because the majority of the time when I see seed or problems that consistently perform year over year, the first thing I look at is the seed rate. Then the second thing I take a look at is the NPK program. I want to make sure that you're hitting your adequate NP and K. The biggest reason we see failure of turfgrass is that you are critically deficient in one of the nutrient levels, and instead of trying to fix that or compensate that with an adequate fertilizer program, people try to compensate for that by using something that may only provide a temporary effect. And my point is that a lot of times people will reach towards a biostimulant to overcome a deficiency because either one, they don't know they're deficient, or two, because they're trying to keep up with Mr. Jones, right? And so it's important in that instance that you actually look at it from a fundamental, basic agronomic reason as to why things are failing. Start simple, like seed rate, like adequate water, like adequate sunlight. If you meet all of those, then you can move into the next piece of it. Like what is your soil pH? What is your phosphorus levels? What are your potassium levels? And am I applying my NP and K and potentially lime or citric acid or elemental sulfur to combat whatever discoveries I have in the soil test? And if that isn't the case, then as you start moving into suffering this failure, what I would start looking at is that, is it the right plant for the right place? If it continues to fail and you have everything else intact. So when we start getting into the debate of right plant, right place, and so many times we're trying to grow the wrong plant in the wrong place purely because we're chasing some sort of aesthetic that we feel like we can get by using this particular turf species. And what we have to come to the realization on is that at some point we have to give up and say, I'm either going to accept this as good as it gets, that I'm going to lose 20%, 40%, 50% of the lawn every year during the heat of the summer because of the conditions it faces growing here, or we're going to alternate to a different turf type that is going to be better suited for the conditions that we have present in our piece of property. So many times I see people continue to seed fescue, continue to seed fescue, continue to seed fescue. But every year, by the time June rolls around, there's no fescue left in the lawn, and it is a 100% Bermuda lawn. And then fall rolls around, and the idea is, well, no, I'm just going to plug and seed fescue again. And you're scratching yourself on the head, like, why? If you lose all of it every year and we're seeding into it with the same thing over and over, why? The Bermuda clearly made its way here naturally. So there you go. Why is the INTEP data so outdated? It's actually not. It's going to be on region, right? So it depends on where the seed manufacturer wants to test this information. If your last seed information is from 2004, 2005 in Maine, it's because none of the manufacturers want to do any testing there, or none of the universities will allow them to do testing there. And that's just the way it works. So now, if you look up, the way they typically do this is going to be over a multi-year study, right? So the National Tall Fescue Test started in 2013 and ran until the end of 2017. And then they started the next one for the spring of 2018, and then they're running it until 2023, for example. And if you don't see the new cultivars on there like Bewitched and Mazama, it probably is, but it's under a research name. And it's not until they release the final data on the final INTEP report that they will release the actual name. So for instance, when I'm looking at this 2019 progress report and I go to turfgrass quality here in the transition zone, then we see PPG TF306, ZRC1, PPG TF255, DLFPS 3213705. That's not the name of the actual fescue they're doing. That's the research code. Now, in 2023, when they finalize the report, you'll go in and look at all this, and it'll have different names. It'll be Traverse 2, Firecracker, Spider, whatever, Valkyrie, whatever the case may be. All of a sudden, you'll see that as the new name. So they're protecting their intellectual property until they get to the end of the result. Because here's the other thing. They're testing the seed, and if it turns out to be an abysmal failure, you know what they may do? They may leave it a research name and just be done with it. So chances are there's about a 99% positive chance that Mazama is being tested somewhere, somehow, some way, but it's still under a research name. So for instance, if we go to Kentucky Bluegrass, the final report was 2016, and we'll go to turfgrass quality, and I'll do this for the transition zone, and I'll do a quick search. Here is Mazama right here in the transition zone, tested in Kansas, Maryland, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Virginia. And, you know, it did pretty well, you know, in terms of, and this is turfgrass quality. So this is kind of an average among everything. This isn't necessarily just color. We're talking about density, you know, disease, all that is taken into account. because right here, what scored number one is the Barvet HGT in the transition zone. Our HGT type grass. And then let's take it over for a different quality rating, right? So we'll say a quality and other data under summer patch stress in North Carolina. We see Barzerati, Barvet, and the quality ratings here are actually pretty low. So that tells us summer patch ran very rampant throughout these varieties we see here. Barvet, Mazama, Midnight, Award, Sky, Blue Note, New Chicago, Cabernet, Neeland. All of these are here, and we're looking at the quality ratings. 5.7, 5.9, 5.5, 4.4, 3.8, 4.4. So not exactly stellar. Even our let's see what Mazama had across the North Carolina portion of the transition zone. So where are we? Had a mean score here of a 5.6, which is that's pretty low, right? But it did have good genetic color. It had an 8.3 on genetic color, which is one of the highest. It was very slow in spring green up, 4.9, one of the slower ones. Had good leaf texture and had decent kind of middle of the road density settings. So it's kind of some stuff there. Would you be more likely to apply a standalone kelp biostimulant on its own in pre-stress and stress conditions than in RGS type product that includes humic acid? I don't know. So really, the data that exists out there shows that the magic would be the combination of a humic having a synergistic effect with kelp applied prior to and through the duration of stress, applied at a 9 ounce per acre rate of a 6%, of a 6% humic and 1% or 3% kelp. It would be applied 9 ounces per 1,000 every 2 weeks from prior to the onset of stress through the end of the stress period was where you saw its ability to fight stress, assuming you could keep adequate water on it. It didn't do anything in terms of disease resistance or anything like that, but as far as actual helping tolerate those levels of stress and fight off impending dormancy due to purely heat, it was able to mitigate that to an extent. Now, it wasn't perfect. It didn't keep 100% perfect, beautiful turf quality, but it performed better than the control. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that you could maintain the density of the root system, where normally that's a time of the season where your root system sloughs and shrinks up, where you lose a lot of mass, it dies and then shrinks up, and then you get more reactionary to ambient pressure on the plant, and so you get this movement out of it. So in that particular instance, when applied 9 ounces per 1,000 every 2 weeks prior to through the duration of a stress period, that was where it performed well. I don't know what Matt is talking about, but this sounds a lot like Not Bermuda. Sean, I've only got two down, and that's my MO is only 2. So I've got 1 and 2. Third button is buttoned. Just 2, Sean. Come on, man. It's the and this actually is not casual for me. This is my business attire. In fact, the business meeting I went to today, I wore exactly like I was wearing it now. Did that help me at all? Probably not, but it's at least what I went with. And what's kind of interesting, so that is bluegrass for quality for summer patch, right? And we kind of talked about that there. It obviously didn't do very well, but then we take like stress into account. So we see here, and this is pretty interesting. So, this is traffic stress, and they simulated 10 games, 15 games, and then 2 weeks after, and then 1 month after, and then 2 months after. And they gave a rating to these, to the quality of the turf after the fact after all this traffic. And what's interesting is that you start to see some of these actually come alive through use, right? But I have to say, like Blue Bank actually did really well in Knoxville right here. It did as equally as good as Barvette HGT. But when we talk about genetic color, Barvette HGT had a genetic color score rating of a 5 using an NVDI meter. And then Burbank, for instance, was an 8.3, so pretty significantly different. Connor, we did the whole first part of the show today all about Simazine. As far as its half-life in the soil, it's going to be relatively short, 45 days, somewhere around there. And the pre-emergent properties of negate, really the only thing it exists and it is possible. Again, I wouldn't say it's a long-lasting approach, but combining that with something like Simazine is going to give you a little bit more efficacy out of it. Now, metsulfuron and rem sulfuron are persistent in higher pH soils, meaning they're going to have a longer period of efficacy in higher pH soils versus acidic soils. And then also, as you start getting into clays and different structures, as a general rule of thumb, for something like negate, I would expect 30 days. If combined with Simazine, I would say something closer to like 75 days. Simazine in and of itself is not going to be super effective because so many weeds have developed resistance to it, so I would put that at roughly 30 to 45 days at total max best case scenario type deal there. Boy, we kind of whipped on through there. As we start to wind down these things on Friday, I hope everybody takes it upon themselves to have a fantastic weekend. Whatever it is you choose to do remember to do so responsibly and take a moment to learn as much about it as you possibly can. I promise it will come back and pay dividends in the long run. And remember, for those of us that represent this industry, the green industry, why it is so important that we become so versed scientifically for each and everything we decide to do in this industry has to do with the fact that we are only as strong as our weakest link. So it's important that if we are to preserve the integrity, the duration, and the output of this industry, we must take it upon ourselves. It is our sole responsibility to learn, to educate, and share such learned and education with those we encounter. We are the face of the industry. We are the voice of the industry. So it's important we bear that responsibility responsibly. At the end of the day, the beginning of the day, while on the toilet or whatever the case may be, remember the label is the law. And one of the greatest things we can do is study our labels. As boring as that may sound, what's interesting about it is that the more we continue to do it, the more the little bits of similarities and similes and differences and all those other pattern-like observations will be made. And as we begin to develop the patterns that go along with this industry, we'll start to realize where things reach the levels of necessity and where things all of a sudden are maybe not so necessary at all. I challenge you to think about what you do and improve your efficiency. The improvement of efficiency means we get to be better stewards of what we do, whether it be through integrated pest management, whether it be through mitigation of resistance. All of those come to benefit us in the long run. If you're feeling real froggy and there's something you don't understand, always search for university trials. There's a lot we can take away there, and there's a lot to unpack there. It requires a little bit of advanced reading. If you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. Feel free to send it to me. I enjoy those things. All right, everybody, y'all have a fantastic weekend. We're going to be seeing you. Check it out over on the YouTube at 8 o'clock Sunday evening. We're going to be doing, 9 p.m. Eastern. 9 p.m. Eastern over on the YouTube. We'll be doing the live show where, the live stream where we just take on viewer questions. And we're going to be burning through that. And in the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Remember, it is the start of SEC college football, and if you're into any other sport other than SEC college football, this is the moment where I recommend you turn on the TV and watch these kids play their absolute ass off. Phenomenal athletes, and it's my favorite time of the year. And go Vols.
To reach your heart. Let me bridge the gap between us. To cross these treasures.